So the stage or rejection of both?
It is not a rejection of Mrs. Basari Bissessar at all. And in any case, let me make it quite clear. When I do reject Dr. Rowley, I reject his arrogance, I reject his insensitivity, I reject his lack of performance, but as a person, I do reject him. Dr. Rowley is tired. He has always been. And I feel, of course, no man could make so many promises and not keep them unless he was tired. He's tired.
What do you hope to accomplish? There are 41 constituencies, and presumably you hope to win.
I will win.
If you hold the deadlock seat, what will be your position at that point?
Well,
who you will join with?
If the vote is 2021, I will consult with my executive colleagues to decide what the next step should be.
What is the last conversation? When is the last conversation you had with Dr. Rowley about these promises?
I would think I had it with him by about 2017, 2018.
What are the promises that you say he's broken?
I just told you. He promised to help the poor. He hasn't done that. He made them poor. He promised to reduce inequities in society, especially against disadvantage. He didn't do that. He made it worse. He promised to remove corruption, and corruption today, let me take his words. In this country, is 10 times worse than it was under the UNC. Only difference is it's more subtle, and this is the whole point. And he promised to remove corruption.
What do you mean by that? It's more subtle?
Because in such ways that you cannot see it, unless of course you are unless of course you can get underneath, as I have done, you can't see it.
Can you give us an example of what you cite as this subtle corruption?
I won't give an example of that, but what I'll do, I will tell you, for example, a government that came into office and promising to institute procurement legislation after 5 years hasn't done so, leaves much for you to ask. A government that goes to Australia and buys 2 boats for over $2 billion without any procurement policy whatsoever, you ask yourself the question. And this goes on and on. A government that can to start up an airport in Tobago for $1.2 billion at a point in time when the travel industry Tobago is as low as it had been in 10 years. We're going at $1.2 billion airport, and you started mere days ago. And the list goes on and on. So I think you guys in media are bright enough to get the others for yourself.
Mr. Warner,
yes.
Are you willing to hold any further talks with Dr. Rowley?
No, too late.
Are you willing to hold any with Mrs. Basari Bissessar?
If she welcomes me to talk, I will talk with her. And by the way, if Dr. Rowley will talk to me, but not about politics, I have no problem. I don't think he can change. But if Mrs. Bissessar is willing to talk, or anybody else, I have no problem with that.
You said this will be the campaign of a lifetime when you filed your papers a while ago. What does that entail?
It entails that I shall walk and touch every household, every hand. I shall meet everybody who is able to vote. I shall convince all communities. I shall use such levels of technology that has been unseen and unheard of before. And the list goes on and on and on. And I shall give you a campaign that is unbelievable.
I asked you earlier on, when is the last conversation you had with Dr. Rowley? When is the last conversation you had with Mrs. Basari Bissessar?
7 years ago.
So you haven't spoken to her since?
No.
There are suggestions behind the scenes that you have mended ways with her. Is that true or inaccurate?
That is not true. I have seen that, I have heard that people have been bombarding me with all kind of questions, how we met privately at the Center of Excellence and so on. That's not true.
You mentioned the use of technology, and I couldn't help but think of the fact that you mentioned as somebody involved in the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Has there ever been any truth to that? Where do you stand on that?
That is so ridiculous. That is not worth. That of course is not worth dignifying. I do anything but Cambridge. All I know that when I was in college, at Penetration College, I passed Cambridge exam. I got a grade 1 with 8 distinctions. That's all I know about Cambridge.
Mr. Warner, good afternoon. Urvashi from TV6. Right here.
Yes.
There had been some talks that you would have sought an accommodation with the UNC. Is there any truth?
That's not true. That's not true at all. That's not true at all. I may have some UNC friends still, but I never sought any. I never sought with them, and they never sought any with me.
Now, just a short while ago, you talked about the meetings that you had with Dr. Rowley and the promises that the requests that were made of you to hold a meeting, to use the Sunshine newspaper to attack us at Barra, and you also admit to doing that. How will an electorate now trust you coming here to say that you would have somehow influenced the past election?
That's easy. I made it quite clear that I didn't like the cabal. I had my beef wasn't so much with Mrs. Posabi Sessa, though she, like anybody else, has her faults. My beef was with the cabal, and if it meant that I had to give in the cabal by helping the PM, I will do that. They say my fought in Shokona's West in 2013 and beat them in 51 polling stations out of 51 because the cabal again was at fault. And my issue has always been the cabal in the UNC.